to this country when I was 9 years old, and it's been really challenging actually along the way. But from early on, I knew I either want to be an artist or a lawyer, and I'm glad that I picked lawyer because it's a really challenging job, and it's one that's really motivating and really fulfilling in many respects.
Regarding education in Hong Kong, you've grown up in Hong Kong, and we want to see the challenge. We want to take the challenge, see what you guys learned there. And you also grown up in this country as well. You've been to the local schools. So if you could talk about your Hong Kong style of education, it would be interesting.
Think the main difference between Hong Kong and Britain education is how competitive it was, or it is in Hong Kong. That parents or the children who are studying, they're not so much concerning about what they're learning, but they're overtly concerning about their grades. So it's a lot of pressure to trying to get the grade rather than to see what they are actually learning in school. So when I was studying in Hong Kong, I went for the same phase. My parents were concerning about my grades because I was falling behind, but in a way I was very lucky that my parents are much more relaxed, and in terms of my grades, he wanted to make sure I understood what I was doing. So by the time I moved to this country, and it's to do with education, in fact, because 1997, the year that mainland China was going to be handed back to the Chinese government, my parents were concerning about my future in Hong Kong. So they decided to take me to England for a better education. And by the time I moved to this country and to study, immediately I noticed the difference. For example, the classes were a lot more smaller, so there was fewer children in one class. Because in Hong Kong, you can get up to 35 to 40 children in a single class.
Why is that? Because Hong Kong is a rich place. It's not like it's a rich.
It's a rich place, but education has been placed not as a top priority. So the site for the school are very limited. And since property in Hong Kong, the price for the property in Hong Kong are very expensive. So to open up a huge public school, the government don't see the initiative to do that. So the school in Hong Kong are very cramped.
How was you disciplined? If say you missed or you didn't behave well or you didn't do well in your exams, I mean, with respect, of course, it's their way of doing it, but how was you disciplined?
It's probably a funny story now, but it wasn't back then. When I was in Hong Kong, I'm not a very model student per se. So I think one time I was in class and I was caught talking to my fellow students, and the teacher back then would call my name, step in front of the entire class, and I would be physically disciplined. So a long ruler will be brought out, and I'll get slapped on the hand, quite hard. But for a child, any physical contact would be quite.
I'm sure it's changing now, right?
Right now it's different, of course, because right now I think it has to do with location as well. I must admit, because the school I was in my local village, so the teacher back then, they had to use a slightly more primitive solution to discipline the children.
You know what? I had the same, man. I got fits myself as well in front of everybody else as well.
So,
and